Serious. What is the most eerie, creepy, or scary thing to ever happen to you? Please do like, share, and subscribe. Getting stuck in an industrial titanium spore fire outside my office in the plant where the only exit was to run past the jet flame like fire 10 meters or 30 feet away while I look out the office door window watching wooden pallets catch fire due to heat but not even in the flames. Made the best decision of my life to risk it and ran after hearing the office roof creaking from the flames that were convexing off the plant roof, lapping against the office roof only 10 to 15 seconds after the fire started. It was so hot, it melted the plastic housing on the light fixtures 2 bays to the left and over 100 meters, 300 feet away, and melted the sheet metal roof above the metal hopper the swarf was in, as titanium swarf can burn around 3,000 degrees Celsius. Got away with some light burns to the back of my neck, a sunburn, and smoke inhalation after booking it, running as fast as I could for the length of a football field. Finding my uncle dead in his room, I was about 14. He had a drinking issue. The ironic thing was he had been to rehab and was in recovery when he died. I knew he wasn't well, as my mum called me at school to tell me the doctors were coming as she didn't want me to come home and freak out. I got home, and Mum asked how my day was. I'd actually had a good day for once, no bullying, and it was a lovely sunny day. The door went, so Mum went to get it, assuming it was the doctor, and to this day I can't explain it. But the warmth went out of the house, and the sky went dark, and I had this wave of panic and unease. My mum came in as it was just a salesman, and she felt it too. She listened, and said she couldn't hear my uncle moving, etc., as you could before. We ran upstairs. He wouldn't respond, so we tried to open his door, and we couldn't. Then Mum noticed his arm slump in the gap. Turned out, he had slumped on the door. She pushed it with all her strength and asked me to check by getting my head in the door gap. I did, and he was passed out, losing color. My head got stuck, and I'm just desperately trying to break free, and my head is stuck, so I'm just watching the color fade from his face. I managed to get free and ran to call an ambulance as my mom tried to move him to get in. Medics came, had to get back up to break the door in, but he was already gone. Found out later, when I had my head in the door, they said he was likely already gone anyway. Never have been able to deal with that day, and it still fucks me up now. This is in rural Iowa, in a house that was built in the 1800s as a school, now a farmhouse. The living room has a gigantic picture window facing a couple hundred acres of woods that butt up against the house. I had no coverings on the window, so when it was dark, I could only see the reflection of the stuff on the inside of the house, mainly me and the living or dining area. The floor plan is open. My couch represented the border of the living and dining area, behind that the kitchen, and a stairwell by the dining kitchen area. So, sitting there watching TV about 11 p.m., I start to get a little sleepy and decide just to lay down on the couch facing the window and doze off. I wake up and look down at my phone to see what time it was, 2:05 a.m. I lay there a second and think I see something out of my peripheral coming from the window. I slowly start to look at the window and notice 2 young girls, 1800s attire, peering over the couch at me. I was petrified. All I could do was pull the blanket over my head and hope they would go away. I've seriously started shaking thinking of this. Been 10 years or more. Many years ago, I was traveling Labor Day weekend to the beach. The highway was really congested and we were traveling at a decent speed. I'd been driving with the same car in front and behind for quite a while. I go to light my cigarette and realize my lighter was not where I normally put it. So as I'm driving, I'm searching everywhere within my reach for my lighter, but it isn't anywhere. I get off the next exit, read the song wrong, and go to the wrong direction off the exit. I turn around to go find the gas station. I run into the store to buy a new lighter and jump back in my car, and sitting in the passenger seat is my fucking lighter. I was so confused and thought for a moment I was losing my shit. The lighter was not there a minute ago. I go to get back onto the highway and the traffic is barely moving. As I drive a little bit down the highway, I see that the car that was in front of me was flipped over on the side of the highway, and the car that had been behind me was on the other side of the highway, all smashed up, along with a couple more cars. I was in shock. The intense emotions I was feeling were overwhelming, and my head was spinning. What the fuck just happened? I got off the next exit, pulled over, and sobbed. Still 15 years later, give or take, tears are rolling down my cheeks as I type this. We bought a haunted house, but only found out about it after the sale. Weird things happened, like one night all of the glassware in the cupboards shattered. I mean, like into little tiny pieces for no reason. No one was even in the kitchen. Later, we ran into the brother of the guy we bought it from, and the first thing he asked was, "So, have you seen the ghost?" Can't say I overly believe in ghosts or spirits or anything, but that made this even so much worse. I've always been able to find an explanation for creepy things. For example, every so often in my room there would be a loud bang and the sliding door would shake a bit, as if someone had punched it from the inside, attempting to get out. Found out that it was the temperature. I like to keep my room cold, and when the temperature was changing, usually when I was trying to get to sleep, the door would expand or contract and make the sound or rattle. Scared the piss out of me for a while until I figured it out. To this day, I've got fucking nothing to explain this one though. Obviously, middle of the night, pitch black in the house. My room was upstairs, and I'd gone downstairs to the kitchen for a glass of water. I never turned on the lights. I figured if I forced myself to endure the dark, it wouldn't scare me. Didn't work. I was always scared. I drank my water and started fumbling my way back to the stairwell. 2 steps up, I felt something like claws grab my left leg. I had scratches on my leg after. They went through my pajama bottoms and pulled down. Hard enough that it fucked up my steps and I almost fell. Now, my cat was an asshole and liked to attack me all the time, so I ignored it and continued up the stairs. It seemed so normal. Walked into my room, went to sit on my bed, and picked up my cat like every night to cuddle. Took me about 30 seconds to realize that my cat had been passed out on the bed, clearly so asleep that she must have been there for a while. Remembered that the cat had been there before I went downstairs too. Turned on the lamp and proceeded to not sleep for like 2 days. 1st grade. I was 6, sitting on a park bench overlooking a lake on a sunny day. Lush green grass, breeze in the trees above me, waiting by myself for my grandmother across the street buying snacks. A man wearing a heavy coat enters the park. Why is he wearing a coat? Why is he carrying a thorny branch? He abruptly comes behind me, grabs me by the shirt collar, and throws me face first into the lake. Don't remember what happened next. My grandmother was crying. Police came. I was unhurt, unshaken really, almost tearful. It was beautiful out, and I was too young to understand what happened. I have personally had many strange encounters with an unusual experience. Here is one that sticks out in my mind. My friends and I have long been fans of the paranormal, and we would regularly go out and try and see a ghost or gain evidence anywhere. One night in particular, we went to a cemetery in a nearby town that was said to be half haunted. It was split by a road to 2 sections, one that was normal, and one that was supposedly haunted by a serial rapist and murderer that was buried there. We stayed on that side trying to find him. We walked around for about 30 to 40 minutes, taking pictures, recording audio, and asking questions with no response, when we decided to call it quits. Finally, the group of the 4 of us split. My buddy and I stayed back, and the 2 others headed back towards the car. The 2 others asked that if there were any spirits to show itself now, because we would soon be gone, and it worked. After they had gotten back to the car, I decided I would take my buddy's camera and try to get some pictures, and that is when I saw him. As I pressed the camera button down halfway to focus before I took the picture, the camera emitted a faint orange light while it focused, and in the light was a man, and I remember everything about him. He was roughly 6 feet tall, or within 5'11" to 6'1" range, and he had a short haircut that was lightly spiked, almost as if he had used paste in his hair. He was wearing blue jeans and a plaid long-sleeve shirt with the sleeves rolled up like a farmhand. He was leaning against the grave in front of me, but positioned so his body was slightly at an angle to me, but his head was facing me, with the black pits of his eyes staring directly into my core. I processed the scenario for a second, thinking it was a ghost, then thinking it must be a human due to how detailed he was. I tensed up thinking he would attack me, since past midnight in a cemetery, if someone sneaks up on you quietly enough to never be heard, they must have intent to harm you. When I opened my eyes after bracing for an attack, he was gone. I immediately told my friend we had to get out of there, and we did. I explained the situation to them as I have to you here, but there is one important thing to tell. I was never threatened by this man, just startled. Even knowing he must have been a ghost, there was an odd aura around the situation of calm and ease. The feeling he gave me was almost like he was saying, "I run these parts, so you play by my rules." It was a great experience, and I have been back to that cemetery multiple times, every time getting that same feeling, or seeing something out of the corner of my eye, knowing it is him, always. When I was about 10 or 11, I would sleep with my blanket over my head to keep warm during the winter, as my room had a bad draft. One night I woke up, terrified, because it felt as if someone was pressing down on my arms. At this point, I'm almost to tears because I was so fucking scared out of my mind. I didn't lift the covers off my head, or even move for that matter. After the terror set in, my body was turned by the same force that was pushing down on my arms, so that my head was now against the wall. For minutes, the pressure on my arms stayed and kept me down. What seemed like hours later, the pressure was lifted, and very suddenly. At this point, my face is wet from sweat, and I'm shaking. Somehow I managed to fall back to sleep a few hours later. From what I've read about sleep paralysis, that seems to be the best explanation, but I still get chills thinking back to that night. I'd stay in buildings that once had been built by the priesthood years ago. We hear scary stories about places like voices coming through this drain pipe down to the lower floors. The boys' dorm rooms are placed near the drain pipe, and this one guy who heard voices coming from the pipe. He was freaking out, but I stayed at my room kind of laughing. I can still remember that time I was laying down on the bed reading, and all of a sudden I heard a voice right near my left ear whispering, "Hello." Honestly, I don't know what the heck was that noise, because the room I'm staying in was further away from everyone else, and it was the weekend, so most of the people who stayed there went back home for the weekend. I was alone during that time, and that still freaked me out. When I was 2, blonde hair, blue eyes, me, my mom, dad, and baby brother went on holiday to Tenerife. We were in the hotel room one morning, and I was told to go and brush my teeth. I happily scampered off to the end suite and grabbed the toothpaste. It was a small hotel room, and it kept the bathroom door open. I tried to unscrew the toothpaste cap for like a second, but I wasn't strong enough. So I wandered out, toothpaste in hand, to my parents saying, "Mommy, Daddy, I can't do it." And they'd gone. Seriously, in the space of like 5 seconds, they'd actually left me. With a rising sense of panic, I started wandering around the hotel floor crying for them and couldn't find them. I remembered that whenever we left the hotel room, we always got in the lift, so in my 2-year-old mind, that was the best thing to do. When the lift door opened, a big girl saw me and asked why I was crying. God bless her, she walked around the hotel with me until I saw them at breakfast, on the ground floor. They, especially my mother, looked really pissed off and angry to see me and quickly dismissed the girl. Years later, I asked about this incident and my mom got angry at me and told me I was making it up. She's a terrible mother. You remember this from 2 years old? Okay. When I was younger, between the ages of 12 and 17, I'm 18 now, me and some other friends used to spend our weekends at another friend's house. Her house was pretty big and was on top of the hill. You could walk down into the backyard. The backyard was overgrown with all kinds of plants. When you reached the bottom, there was a trampoline and a chain-linked fence. On the other side of the fence, there was a dried-up stream, and more of the hill next to it was an old path. During the day, we used to walk over to the cemetery. It had been there for a while. When I was about 13 or 14, the workers at the cemetery started digging up graves and removed broken nameplates and gravestones. After then, whenever me and my friends went down to the trampoline, as we did before, a deep fog would roll in, and it would suddenly get really cold in a matter of minutes. The whole yard was covered in fog that lingered close to the ground. There would be maybe 5 or 7 of us. We were all pretty good friends and knew each other really well. We all got the same feeling of something or someone watching us from the dark. We would run back to the house through the overgrown yard. It felt like something in the dark was just going to grab us, then we would disappear from the group. Fast forward a few years. I have moved into the house. I'm around 15 at the time. I had one of the 2 rooms downstairs. Back then, it was just me downstairs with the cats sometimes. There was a back door leading to the backyard and the boiler room. Whenever I walked past the door, it felt really cold and like something was there watching me. I would always walk past as fast as I could. When I was in my room at night, I felt like someone was watching me sleep. One time, I was with my boyfriend in my room and we heard someone hit the door and call out something. We couldn't hear at the time. My cat was sitting on the floor between us and the door. Whatever was there, She wasn't going to let it come in the room. She spent a long time watching the door and hissing at it. Later, I found that the wife of the last owner had killed herself in my room a long time ago. I was 10 years old, and I was staying at my brother's friend's house. We are not to mention that his house is built on an old Indian burial ground in Ocala, Florida. We found a hole in the base of the tree and his property, and we dug down, and the hole found old Indian jewelry and arrowheads. My brother and his friend put everything they found back, but I didn't keep an arrowhead. Later that evening, around 1:30 in the morning, I woke up in a different part of the house from where I fell asleep on the couch. So I walked to the living room and found my brother and his friend huddled in fear in the living room, and when they saw me walk around the corner, the fear in her eyes was enough to make me stop in my tracks. And to this day, my brother will not tell me everything that happened that evening, more than my eyes dilated and I spoke in a different language. FYI, I put the arrowhead back years after the incident, and then I used some periods and commas and punctuation. I was driving a friend home at around 11 p.m. It was raining slightly, but not hard at all. To get back to her place is just 27 miles of highway driving. We're driving in the left lane, going about 70 miles per hour. Nothing is abnormal. I turn to her and go, "Hey, we're going to hydroplane, hold on." Then we hydroplaned. My little Kia Soul did 2 360 spins across the 5 highway lanes, narrowly missing a few other cars, before skyrocketing back towards the guardrail. The brakes weren't working. It almost went in slow motion, us catapulting towards certain death at high speed. Then suddenly, right before we hit it, the brakes kicked back in and I pulled completely parallel to the guardrail, facing opposite of the oncoming traffic on the narrow shoulder. I have no clue how I knew that would happen. Nothing felt off about the car at all. I just got a weird sense about it. It's scarier than any actual crash I've been in. The funny part was, we were less scared of dying in the moment. We were worried about the police finding weed in my car. I was a resident advisor at my college, and at one point during the summer, I had the building to myself. I was awakened at 3 a.m., hearing a couple of dudes laughing outside near my window. When I opened my eyes, I saw my window screen being jostled right out of the frame. Definite WTF moment. I sort of just froze, and one dude started to hoist himself inside. Then he saw me and just said, somebody's in here, and they ran off. It turned out that they were security guards for an upcoming event, checked in early. They were just running around being dumb, but it was terrifying. I was extremely sick one time. Couldn't keep food down, constant vomiting. Hadn't been able to sleep in like 3 days, so the combination of those had me constantly shaking and my eyes playing tricks on me. It wasn't drugs. I watched some random horror movie on TV because I liked the actor, but horror movies usually scare the shit out of me. I went outside to try and smoke a cigarette at like 2 a.m. when I thought I saw something walking around my backyard, but figured I was just scared from the movie plus the lack of sleep. A little while later, I was laying on the couch trying to sleep with just a blue screen on the TV on for light when I saw this 7-foot-tall monster with horns and fist-sized bulbous eyes looking at me through the all-glass back door. I jumped up and freaked out and ran to my bedroom to grab my pistol, and when I got downstairs, it was gone. Like an idiot, I decided to look around outside, so I grabbed a flashlight and started checking my backyard. Nothing. Eventually, I decided to go try to sleep in my downstairs spare room because it's cooler down there, because it's half underground, so the windows are level with the ground outside. I heard a noise and grabbed my gun, and when I go out the room, I see this monster climbing through my window. I pointed my gun and yelled at it, disappeared back out of the window. I ran upstairs to my front door, flip on the light on my mailbox to see 3 dudes in masks jumping into a car and driving away. They knew I was home, but were adamant about breaking in, so I'm glad I have guns and couldn't sleep that night. Also, glad it was burglars and not real monsters trying to kill me.